This is Andrew Cartmel, and it is my master plan to listen to Mark Who 42.
Welcome to Mark Who 42 here on Subspace Radio. I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten, and we are going to be talking about the late, great Christopher H. Bidmead, who died on August the 6th of this year. Doctor Who fans, this show is for you. With me today are
Juan Sanmiguel in Orlando.
Hey Juan, how's it going?
Oh, same old, same old.
Same old, same old. So we have Juan in Orlando. I'm in South Florida. But this is an international show today. Introduce yourself while I yank the rope.
Currently being held captive from afar by Mark, and I think this is some sort of international incident. It's Jarrod, and I am currently in Bogota, Colombia.
Bogota. Ooh, having fun there?
Immensely, yes.
Are you drinking their Kool-Aid? Oh, they don't have Kool-Aid, do they?
They have American Kool-Aid that I brought here, but I have drank a couple of their 20-calorie bottles of Coke, where in the US, the bottle of Coke has like 280 calories. Down here, it's only like 20, 25. So yeah.
Did they use real sugar or they used...
They don't use corn syrup. Like, it tastes completely different. And yeah.
Do they do Coke Zero?
Yeah, they have Coke Zero as well.
But there's only 20 calories. Why would you need Coke Zero? You've got...
Anyway, as a full disclosure, Juan Sanmiguel's family is from Colombia, so
there we go. All right. So, like I promised, today's show is about Christopher H. Bidmead. And Juan, you wanted to start off?
Yep. Well, Christopher H. Bidmead was the script editor for Doctor Who and Tom Baker's last season. He got the job in 1979 with the departing of Douglas Adams, and he was recommended by Robert Banks Stewart. Now, on this day of recording, which is September 20th, 2025, it is the 50th anniversary of the broadcast of the last episode of Terror of the Zygons, and the 45th anniversary of the broadcast of the last episode of Laser Hive, which was the first story of his season, which is playing on Mark's background, that long pan that Lovett Bigford did, which I do believe he explains in the commentary of the Laser Hive DVD.
He does, and on the Blu-ray, definitely discusses why we have this minute-long wipe across Brighton Beach. I'm not going to give you the reasons on that. Go get the media.
Anyway, so Christopher H. Bidmead, as I understand it, got to see some episodes from season 17. He felt that it gotten too jokey, too silly. Tom Baker was a little bit out of control, so he wanted to downplay and push scientific concepts in the show. Now, one of the things that he did about the show, and as I said, my friends at Radio Free Scour pointed this out, and I want to cite them, that he planned this as a modern television show. I mean modern about the present era, because all the shows in his era, I think, had the common theme of entropy, and also had a mini arc in the middle of it. And I think we'll probably talk about that a little bit more. Sadly, he only lasted 1 year, and part of it was a really difficult job he really put into it. John Nathan Turner could be a challenge on what eventually got on screen. I mean, he could be overridden. Supposedly, Peter Moffat said that one of the drafts he got for State of Decay, which he directed, had the vampires coming out of eggs, and he was expecting a gothic story, and John overrode him and goes, "Give him the gothic story back that Terrence had written." So those challenges, I mean, he essentially asked for a raise, not realizing that the BBC is essentially like the civil service. You only get raises when you get a promotion or after a certain time in service, and not wanting to, look like he would grovel on his terms, decided to leave, and although he submitted a couple of scripts, and again, we'll talk about that later, he would only get one more script outside of his tenure as script editor. That was produced. My My only criticism of his is that I remember reading an interview with him in Doctor Who magazine, and it had to have been after the show was back on. I don't know if it was late Tennant or early um, Matt Smith, but essentially he was criticizing the show about not really being Doctor Who. And I'm going, now look, you did a great season of Doctor Who, but you didn't know Doctor Who, perfectly. And I just felt he was a little bit full of himself in that interview. I also found out that he got into a little trouble. He and Andrew Smith, who wrote Full Circle, had a falling out because apparently he knew about a website where you could download Big Finish audios without having to pay or something,
Ooh.
and they were not on speaking terms until they did the Blu-ray and they patched things up apparently. So that's my. Do you guys have anything to say? Let's get all the negatives out so we can then praise Christopher H. Bidmead
There
for
you
the
go.
rest of unless it's about an individual episode, and then we can talk about
Jarrod,
those.
what are your thoughts on Christopher H. Bidmead and his tenure?
I thoroughly enjoy his tenure. I am one of those weird people that I like early Tom and later Tom, middle Tom. I can kind of take or give. I do think it's interesting that downloading Big Finish without paying for it, as Juan said, can cause a rift, because you can do that on Spotify today with some of those releases.
Yes, you can.
So it's interesting how time has changed. But no, his time on the show introduced a lot of things that would be explored for years.
Yeah.
For instance, not all regenerations are sunshines and rainbows. So lots of good stuff there.
There was something
Um,
else that's important, that the Watcher, because of the concept of the Watcher,
Yep.
that could have brought in the Valyard.
It could have brought in the Valyard, depending on how long you want to spread that out. That could also explain David Tennant's second tenure.
Yes, it could.
It could explain a lot of stuff.
It could.
So yeah, lots of things that stayed around for years and became an integral part of the show. So I am fine with his tenure And just to piggyback on something else that got said there by Juan, listen to your DVD and Blu-ray commentaries, because there's lots of stuff that can be found out there.
Now, it's interesting, during his tenure, the last of the Tom Baker era, the ratings did actually go down, but I don't actually think that was the writing's fault or Christopher's fault. They were competing against Buck Rogers in the 25th century on ITV. And when shows like that, or the A-Team or other American shows, are put against Doctor Who, the ratings tended to go down. But no, Christopher H. Bidmead, I enjoyed the season. I am a fan of the Tom, no matter when. Even I like Randall and Hopkirk, the new version, or well, not new, the newer version from 2000, and I thought Tom Baker was a great addition. But so I liked all the Tom Baker era, and Christopher H. Bidmead was a part of that. So I do enjoy him. I enjoy the stories he wrote, and now that I've re-listened to certain things, I enjoy his audio adventures even more. Why don't we move on? Because he did more than just Doctor Who, guys. I mean, you guys knew that, right? Of course you did.
Well, I don't think he did much television afterwards. I mean, and
not
I think
afterwards.
Mark is going.
Not afterwards, but back in 19 what year was it? 1972 to 1973, there was a show called Harriet's Back in Town. It was a show about a newly divorced woman and her plans for her new life. The man who she divorced was played by Ian Chesterton himself, William Russell. The show was on for a year, and Christopher wrote 6 of the episodes. And I have had a chance to look at some of them. It's a decent show. It's like a soap opera twice a week. He also wrote 2 episodes for a show called Rooms back in what year did he write his episode? I think it was 1975. The show was between 1974 and 1977. A weekly drama concerning the various drifters who rent rooms in a lodging house. So they were basically soap opera things, and he didn't write a lot of them, but you know what he did write a lot of? He was a computer journalist. He wrote a lot of stories and articles for New Scientist, for other news, let me find the other ones, PC Plus, Personal Computer World, and he wrote about computers. He wrote about Linux. He was a big fan of Linux. he was also an actor.
Yep.
Yeah.
A
He
very,
was,
very, very young actor.
yes, Emergency Ward 10. In 1965, he was on 8 episodes of it, playing Dr. Lomas. It was a soap opera focused equally on the lives and loves of the medical staff and the pressures of work. Yes, I'm getting this from the net. That's why it sounds like I'm reading it. He was also Crime of Passion. Crime of Passion, he was on one episode as Sergeant Sill in an episode called Celine back in 1970. So he's done acting, he's done writing, and
Well,
he's done Doctor Who.
speaking of his acting,
Okay.
any actor that's from the UK went to RADA, right? Everybody, you can always hear we went to.
Yes.
Do you know who he went to RADA with?
It was either Anthony Ainley or Tom Baker, wasn't
it? It was Anthony Ainley.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yep, and he got his first acting gigs, I want to say at like 16 or 17. He was really, really young. And I was like, oh, okay, no schooling for you. So
Could he have suggested Anthony Ainley for the part of Tremas and the Master? Could he have had anything to do with that decision?
hypothetically, he could have.
Hypothetically,
but
he could have.
Didn't Anthony Ainley also work with Tom Baker before or trained with him or something? I'm not clear about that.
I'm not really sure on that.
Okay, don't worry.
Yeah, he could have, but it would have easily been, hey, we're thinking about Anthony Ainley, and then you have Tom and Bidmead and all the others saying, oh, I've worked with him. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Anthony Ainley loved the part. He loved the part of the Master.
As much as I like Anthony Ainley, I think I have to say this must have been a John Nathan Turner decision. I think it was a mistake to try to make him look like Roger Delgado.
Yeah, I mean,
I think they should have gone for something original. Now looking back on it, I mean, he did a great job as the Master, but I'm just thinking, we should have gone for something different. That's why I liked it that with all the Masters in the modern era, they tried to go for something different every time.
Yeah. That's true, and you have the thing there.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm just gonna say on Anthony Ainley, one of the biggest, saddest things for me is that he let Vane get in the way of his doing Big Finish audios, because they approached him and he was wanting more money than he should have, because he was like, there are plenty doctors, I am the master, I am the one master. And then after he did that, they're like, okay, Jeffrey Beaver's here, we're going to take you to the bank.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well, go ahead, Juan.
No, we'll be talking about that. I think we'll be getting to the audios, because I think that was actually an issue with one of Christopher H. Bidmead's audios. So we'll put a bookmark in that.
Okay. Let's talk about the script editing that he did. Of course, he was the script editor for the 18th season of classic Doctor Who. He was script editor for The Leisure Hive, Meglos, then the East Space trilogy, which we kind of mentioned, Full Circle, State of Decay, Warrior's Gate. He did The Keeper of Traken, and then Legopolis. That was in the script editorship. He wrote things too. We'll talk about what he wrote, but let's talk about the script editing. What did you guys think of season 18? I think we already heard, Jarrod, you said you liked it, but what did you like about it, Jarrod?
It's wild and wacky and like a breath of fresh air. I just loved the entire part of it.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that Jarrod says that, because I found it very somber. I mean, obviously Tom is toned down. He's not going nuts like he did in Nightmare of Eden, which is a perfect example of him going over the top. And the costume is more somber. I mean, we switch over, and I know this is more image than the writing, but I think the writing had to reflect that. I mean, it was, and also the use of science. You always had some type of scientific concept being thrown at you in every story, and then each story was
talking
dealing
about
with
entropy.
I mean, the Argolans are decaying. Tigella is falling apart. Mistfall is causing chaos on Alzarius. The Vampire Lords are supposedly staving off the wasting. And Warrior's Gate, obviously everything is falling apart, going nuts in there. And then, of course, the Keeper of Traken is dying. And of course, it all ties into Logopolis, and we see that, entropy
Yeah.
increases, and it's got to be it's got to be let out as we find out about that. But again, this is all tied in. I mean, no other, I don't think no other season was successful at doing this. I mean, they tried to do it maybe with Trial of a Time Lord, but it didn't really come together. Season 20 tried to do something historical in every episode, and that kind of worked, but I don't think a planned season thematic wise ever worked out like this. The key to time, I mean, the thing is they had to get a MacGuffin and wrap it up at the end, but I think this is kind of how modern television is being done these days. Put the seeds in it. I think the only mistake he made was Meglos, because the cactus I don't think worked at the end of the day.
We will be talking about Trial of the Time Lord in the second half of our show. Just let you know, you are listening to Mark Who 42 here on Subspace and all around the net on Florida Geek Scene, Geekcast Radio Network, iTunes, Google Play, everywhere you can hear us. Jarrod, let's talk about the mini season, the mini arc. Let's talk about eSpace. What were your thoughts, and why do you think, in your opinion, it worked?
They needed something different. And I can see this because Big Finish tried to do something very different, where you get the Doctor somewhere where the normal laws of either physics, time, whatever you want to call it in this particular universe, either don't exist or they behave differently, etc. You needed a little something to mix up. I personally don't think it really worked. Those stories could have easily happened in the normal universe.
It could have, yeah.
And nothing would have mattered.
Now, if you listen to the Big Finish stories that take place in space, in eSpace, right? eSpace, it does turn out to be very different universe,
right?
But they didn't take advantage of it on the TV.
And I'm part of that is wondering if it's physical limitations, like how much of what they needed to do needed to be conceptual rather than visual.
Yeah.
Well, there was also another problem, and this also was dealt with the script editing, because John Nathan Turner was determined to make his mark, and one of the things he wanted to make his mark is not to rely on writers before his era, which made it hard. Now Christopher H. Bidmead had to find new writers. The only reason I think we got David Fisher to do Leisure Hive and Terrence Dicks to do State of Decay was desperation. They needed 2 scripts, and those were the first 2 scripts filmed, and they were either at least in a stage where Bidmead did a rewrite of Leisure Hive to put in the stuff about tachyonics, because I think it was originally the Famasi were going to be mafiosi type aliens.
Well, that's what mafiosa and Famasi
change
the letters around. It's an anagram.
Is it an anagram? That's the word.
Yeah.
And Terrence, as I said, I think I said this in the previous. Originally, Christopher Bidmead did a pass on it. Did a pass on State of Decay, because Peter Moffat, who would direct State of Decay, claimed that the vampires are going to come out of eggs, and I think Moffat wanted to direct a gothic vampire story, and I think he got Terrence's a script closer to what Terrence wrote. And you have to find a script writer. I mean, he was very lucky. He found Andrew Smith, who was a good script writer, and I think Stephen Gallagher, also a good. I liked Warriors Gate, and John Byrne, obviously did Space 1999 and would do a great job on Keeper of Traken. But finding new writers, I don't know if it's better in the modern era, but at least in the classic era, every script editor complained that it was hard to find writers who knew how to write for the show. And when you found them, you treated them like gold. I mean, Terrence Dicks discovered Bob Baker and Dave Martin. Robert Holmes discovered Chris Boucher. And it was just very hard to build up a cadre of writers at that time, particularly if you have the restriction. You can't use the veterans who probably know how to write a Doctor Who story, at least a rudimentary Doctor Who story.
And I'll say in the modern day, I think we are very blessed with that, because we have Big Finish to be like a writer's room training school kind of a thing of writing Doctor Who. that you can get used to writing it, get used to the format, the pacing, and then continue to be developing on your way up. And I wish that something like that would have existed back then.
Yeah, I agree with that. Jarrod, you mentioned the fact that you thought the the E-space stories, exospace, the E-space stories could have happened in our universe, right?
Right.
What about Warriors Gate? Because they definitely had some parts of it that were not part of our physical universe, not the same things that happened in our universe. What about Warriors Gate?
That's 1 out of 3.
Well, and that doesn't work because you know
Yeah.
why? Because
Hmm.
only 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Warriors Gate was a last minute thing because originally Christopher Priest is a very well known British science fiction writer, and they had tapped him in. I don't know if he was tapped in by Douglas Adams or Christopher Bidmead tapped him in initially, but he wrote a story, or at least an outline, called Sealed Orders. And the only thing I know about it is the Doctor's approaching Gallifrey, and on the monitor or something tells him on the console, kill Romana. And that would have been the crisis of the stories. They make it back to Gallifrey, and the Doctor's got to save Romana or prevent Romana from being killed. So Warriors Gate was a quick substitution. It had to be heavily rewritten by Bidmead and Paul Joyce, although Paul Joyce was sitting doing a Times crossword puzzle while Chris is on the typewriter on his computer retyping it up.
Yeah. I do have to say there's one part of the era I'm not a fan of. I bet Jarrod knows what that answer is. What is my one complaint about the Bidmead era?
Adric. And I am okay with Adric. I have no problems with him. He gets a
When
bad
he
rap.
started, he was good. Then they started writing him so they didn't know how to write for him. And I think I mentioned this on the other show on TARDIS Travel Guide. He's a glutton one episode. He's selfish one episode, and it just kept changing. They didn't know how to write his character.
Well, here's the thing. Christopher Bidmead, I think, wrote the outline because I guess, they knew that Lila was on her way out, or they wanted just somebody else. And definitely K9 was on his way out.
Yeah.
So he wrote the one sheet, the description. I think they wanted him to be the more artful Dodger. I think Bidmead did like the character, and I think somebody, I forget who it was it Paul Cornell, the guys who wrote or somebody else who wrote the discontinuity guide, that Adric is kind of okay in Bidmead's era. Anthony Root and Eric Sayward, who edited season 19, I think did not do as good of a job. Adric betrays or appears to betray the Doctor in Fort of Doomsday and somewhat in Kinda. And and then unfortunately Matthew Waterhouse wasn't working out. So that was a problem there.
Yeah.
But I think Bidmead liked him. I think Matthew Waterhouse said somewhere that Christopher Bidmead was the only one who was ever nice to him on the show.
That's what I heard. But I gotta say, to be honest, Adric was not at the beginning because, hey, if you watch Keeper of Traken, you will see Adric could be written very well. Yeah, in State of Decay, he was that
was his first film story.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact that he, like in Fort of Doomsday, he basically, looks like he's going on the other side, and then in State of Decay, he was going on the other side, and then he changed his mind. Maybe in Fort of Doomsday, he was faking it. No, in State of Decay, 100% Adric was a whole.
No, Fort of Doomsday, I think he was charmed by the Monarch. And, he bought the Monarch, lock, stock, and barrel, to the point that Nissa told him to shut up because he was giving everything away. He was giving too much information to a guy they just met.
Yeah.
Well,
all I can say, go ahead.
Speaking of going to the other side, maybe we should go to the other side of this break.
100%. We are going to take a break here on Substance Radio and on all our podcast feeds. When we come back, we are going to have more on Christopher H. Bidmead and maybe less on Adric. We will be right back here on Marku 42.
Don't go away. Don't go away. We'll be back with more Marku 42 after this.
The Pullbag is GCRN's comic book review and discussion-based podcast. Join me, TFG and Mike, and the rest of the GCRN crew as we discuss the comics we are reading right now. Inside the Pullbag, you'll also find the origins of how guests got into or out of reading comics, after dark discussions, and so much more. You can find the Pullbag every Wednesday, which is New Comic Book Day, only on geekcastradio.com and on anywhere you consume your podcasts. Make your great escape into comics and jump into the Pullbag today.
Get ready for the ultimate geek experience right here in the Sunshine State. Florida Geek Scene presents a full calendar of events and conventions. From anime to horror, we've got it all. Meet your favorite stars, find rare collectibles, and immerse yourself in your passions. Experience the thrill of cosplay and witness amazing live performances. Stay up to date with the latest news and reviews all across Florida. Florida Geek Scene, where pop culture happens. Visit us online for more. Don't miss out on the fun. Join us at Florida Geek Scene, floridageekscene.com.
You are listening to Mark Who 42's Universe.
Welcome back to more of Mark Who 42 here on Subspace Radio. I like the ring of that. I used to say that all the time. I had to stop myself. Now I can say it again on Subspace Radio. I'm your host, Mark Baumgarten. With me today are Juan Sanmiguel and Jarrod Cooper. And we are talking about Christopher H. Bidmead, who died in August at the age of 84. That's a long life. We were talking about stuff he script edited on Doctor Who in his early career. But let's talk about his writing in terms of Doctor Who. Who wants to talk about Logopolis?
Can I open up? Logopolis changed my life ever since. The essence of matter is structure, and the essence of structure is mathematics. Got me through a lot of math homework when I was a kid. And the idea of this organic computer, and also fact we still have the Cloister Bell used in last season. That's something that's endured, and that was completely him. And calling the battle stations. I mean, and I don't know. I don't think it's been explicitly used in the new series. But the concept of the architectural configuration of the TARDIS could be rearranged. He got inspired by just deleting and adding files on his 1980s computer.
Yes, I've heard that story.
So, I mean, you have a lot of scientific concepts, and he explained better what the Watcher was, and I think John Nathan Turner did at Omnicom, because I think John tried to. Well, the thing is, he explained that things had gotten so bad that the future Doctor was helping out a past Doctor, and that was a concept. And I think John kind of said he's a projection of the Doctor, but I don't know. I like Chris's explanation, and he defended his writing because he thought that the flooding of the TARDIS was actually a good move, because the Doctor would, the Master was not a visible obstacle, but now this would make him, flush him out in the open, and he could deal with him.
Wasn't in the original script the fact that it really did go underwater and the TARDIS did get flushed, but John said, yeah, not going to do that. We're going to make that. That's not going to work.
I never heard that.
I heard it's just, I mean, there are a lot of stories, but that is something I had heard about it, that the original script.
But actually, when they find, when they land on that jetty, you realize that what it was, it kind of comes off as, but maybe it should come off as, the Doctor's desperate. He doesn't know what to do. He knows that the Master's about, I think he's assumed that Tremas has been killed, and, he's got to do something. And the thing is, when he talks to the Watcher, the Watcher obviously tells him what's going to happen, and he must go forward. I mean, the reason it's I don't know if it's ever explained, but the only way that the Master could get to Logopolis, because you see the TARDIS hovering over Logopolis, they scan to make sure, because you can't get into Logopolis without being checked out.
I'm just going to tell you that the Master can get there a lot easier than Nyssa could have.
Speaking of Nyssa, so they brought. I know it's not it was not Christopher's. I don't think it wasn't his idea. It was part of the show, to bring Nyssa back and to put Tegan in to make a big TARDIS crew. And yeah, he wrote it. I know it wasn't Christopher's idea. At least I don't think it was. I'm pretty sure it was down the JNT. But Jarrod, what did you think about the way that they wrote the three of them coming together, the companions? Because they were separate, and they didn't seem to gel until maybe not even in the second story Christopher wrote in Castrovalva. It was really hard, I think, for the three people to become companions together. What do you think about that, Jarrod?
Well, if you really think about it, Logopolis and Castrovalva are basically back to back.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
It's so from the human point of view, they've not had time to sit around and become buddy. It's there. So I'm going to say those two, okay. Tegan had about the same type of introduction that Donna had in the new series, and played it for the strengths, same way that Donna did.
I've never actually heard a comparison between Janet Fielding and Catherine Tate. So go on with that. I want to hear that a little more.
Well, you have the brash, doesn't want to be there, take me home, take me back to my wedding, et cetera, et cetera. So it's for that introduction, they're like, I wouldn't, would you want to hang out with Tegan if that's what you dealt with? I mean, granted, she also had watched some different stuff going on, and
She watched her aunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're not all in the best of moods to be congealing at any point in time. So that's why I could probably say, just from a human point of view, give them some time to sit down and take a nap first before you expect them to be buddy.
Well, I mean, part of the reason, I mean, I think Nathan Turner was really afraid of the transition. It'd been 7 years of Tom Baker. Could the public handle somebody new? I mean, one of his ideas was to bring back either Liz Sladen or Louise Jameson back and use that as a bridge. But then he came up with the idea of using the Master as a bridge between the two Doctors, which I think is a much better idea of having the Doctor fight a formidable villain as part, that would cause this powerful Doctor to be regenerated. So and again, to be fair, that was also John's idea.
Yeah, well, right. And I find it interesting, and just the writing is different, of course, because the current era and the past era. The fact that Tom Baker's Doctor, the Fourth Doctor, dies from falling from the height of a satellite dish kind of thing up there, and David Tennant falls from, I don't know, height of an airplane and lives, or what? So I remember watching that story, end of time, and I remember, okay, that it doesn't gel. How did he survive almost fine, and the Fourth Doctor bought the farm on that? Just different writing.
Or the Doctor was laying there after falling, looking up, saw Adric Nissen and Tegan.
And there you go.
And then said,
there you go. You win the prize.
And said, I'm out of here. Have fun.
Let the other guy take over.
Yeah.
I want nothing to do with you three.
Right.
I buy that for $1. I like that. So we talked about entropy in Logopolis. Well, we talk about recursive occlusion in Castrovalva. Juan, you're the scientist here, or close enough to it. Talk about recursive occlusion.
Well, I think, Eicher. I mean, the thing is, supposedly, I think he said he was inspired by an Eicher painting, which actually, this does look better in the remastered version of Castrovalva, when the episode 3 cliffhanger looks a little bit better than what they did in the original 1982.
Yeah,
release.
they did the special effect over again. They did a version of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you really look closely at the 1982, it kind of it's a little bit dicey.
It's what they could do back then on a BBC budget. They did their best.
But again, it's an extrapolation of obviously what was established in Logopolis of block transfer computations, of having actual mathematics actually change reality. In the case of Logopolis, create matter and energy in order to power their replica of the Pharos project, and then here you create Castrovalva and input it into the TARDIS computer, and using Adric's calculations board. I mean, it was kind of an
Well, the
interesting.
masters have affected those calculations.
But yeah, I mean, the master captures Adric because he's so powerful. Well, he believes that Adric's mathematical abilities will be able to do a little bit of block transfer computation. And one thing about these two stories that we should note is that there is no monster, traditional Doctor Who monster. The master, and this is the first sort of master. The master in a lot of the John Pertwee stories, if not all of them, he's trying to work with some other power to collaborate and get at the Doctor. Whereas here, he's kind of going solo. He's trying to, he's obviously trying to find the secret of Castrovalva, and then Castrovalva, the secret of Legopolis, and then in Castrovalva, obviously he wants to finish off the Doctor, which he didn't do at Legopolis, and we have we have the stuff there. And I don't think you ever get the master. Well, I think maybe in the modern series you get the master working on his own, but then again you got the Toclaflane, and sorry, I'm butchering that.
Since we're talking about season 18, here's an interesting thing. By the end of season 18, what does Matthew Waterhouse have that none of the other main cast have?
He's the longest person on the show.
A TARDIS key.
He's a regular on the show for season 18.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. I see what you're saying.
Peter Davison, Janet Fielding, Anthony Ainley, and Sarah Sutton were all recurring for season 18. Matthew was the only lead still there by the end of the season.
That's a better answer than mine, which is probably wrong. I always consider, we talk about E-Space trilogy. I always considered Keeper of Traken, Legopolis, and Castrovalva as the master trilogy. It was a trilogy. To me, it was. There were two trilogies in season 18, one that had a cliffhanger in 19. I loved Castrovalva when I was a kid. That was one of my favorite episodes. And I thought, Zero Room, I'll go, was one of my favorite lines.
Which actually came back this year, and the second, Unit built a Zero Room.
Yeah.
In the is it the Reality War, the last story of last year, or is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so they brought back stuff that Christopher H. Bidmead established.
Yeah. Oh, he long lasting what he's come up with. We're going to move on a little because we're on a show moving along here. Let's talk about Frontiers. That was the third and final story that got through to being made of Doctor Who that he wrote on the television series. Who wants to talk about Frontiers?
Oh, tractators. There is nothing wrong with evil snails.
No. And they come back. They do come back. They come back, and we'll talk about that. Juan, what is your opinion on Frontiers?
I think that was the most. No, actually, I actually bought the novelization of that just for grins and giggles. I had some extra money, and I don't know if. No, I mean,
I bought them because I bought everything. I bought the books
that and the Dominators. No, I wasn't really obsessed with novelizations at the time, but I think I was in a Barnes and Noble. I was in a mood, and I bought that, and it was a decent. I think it was a good story. Unfortunately, I think it showed a problem that Eric Sayward had, that he couldn't write for Turlough. I mean, he has Turlough slobbering at the mouth, I think, through a good chunk of episode 3, if I recall correctly, in episode 2, because he's got this racial memory of the Tractators. Apparently, they attacked Tryon.
Yeah.
At least he's not taking a nap like Nyssa did.
Yeah, that's true. But I always, Turlough was not a central part of the story like he is in Modern Undead and Enlightenment and Planet of Fire. He usually got sidelined, and that was kind of apparent in this one. I don't know, again, if that was Sayward or Bidmead, who tried to do some interest, but this was his only attempt of doing a monster per se. I mean, I guess Sayward said you got to do a monster, and it's okay. And he got this idea, I think, of something he saw in his house or his apartment or wherever he lived.
Oh, there's a snail down there. It's falling. Oh, it looks like gravity is pulling it down. There we go. We have a story.
But then again, there was a good design. I don't know if he ever, if RTD ever answered it, but the monsters in Dot and Bubbles really looked like Tractators to me, to the point that, come on,
it looked like
RTD. When you saw the sketches, come on.
I thought of Doctor Who Weekly and the Iron Legion and the
Ectoslime?
Ectoslime. That's what I saw when I saw, and when I saw the pre-pictures, I thought, oh, they brought back Meep. Maybe they'll bring. No, it was, but to me, it looked like it. But yes, it kind of looked a little like a Tractator too. It did. It did.
And it did have this very, I think it had a somber tone because the colony was really, on the verge of collapse. So I think he decided to bring back entropy again.
I was going to say that.
Although
Yeah.
they do fix it at the end. I mean, the Tractators were there or the Gravis and the Tractators were there from day one, who knocked off the colony ship to Frontios and started, taking, obviously knocking off the people. And it must have been, and actually, I think that was the most scariest thing that he did, was having people being pulled down to the earth. I mean, I forget, the character, the daughter saying, "The earth is hungry,"
Mm-hmm.
and I think
And
that was the most scariest thing he did.
And what they did to what he did to the TARDIS, spoiler alert, destroys it, breaks it up. I thought that was cool. I knew, okay, Doctor Who continues after this, so it's not gone. But that was like a shocking moment. And how old was I? I was in my teens.
Although to be fair, was that around the time? I mean, I know they would pull the trigger on it next year with Attack of the Cybermen, but was at the time there was a rumor that JNT was going to change the TARDIS exterior and the police box was going to be retired, or, he was playing around with us at that time. I don't know if that rumor had been instantiated in season 21.
Was it that early? I don't remember if it was that early. Jarrod, do you have an idea on that?
No, I'm just sitting here saying, if we're talking about the TARDIS being destroyed, they already laid that groundwork in Terminus.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, and same season.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's
No, Terminus was the year before.
You're right. And Jarrod, you said no. Juan's right on this one.
Yep.
Juan, you get the brownie point on that. Yay, you corrected me. Thank you. Christopher H. Bidmead has written some great stories, and he's also not written some great stories, or at least one of them he eventually did. One of the stories that he was proposed was The Hollows of Time, and we will talk about that in a couple minutes. But the other one that he was going to write was put in there was called one. I'm going to say it. Let's see if I say it right. Pinnacotheca, I think it's close enough. It was also known as The Last Adventure. It was commissioned for Trial of a Time Lord. It would have probably fit in the Terror of the Vervoid slot because of what the story was supposed to be about. It was commissioned on the 29th of October of 1985, and it was rejected by Eric Soward on the 7th of February, 1986. He did write a treatment. There was a document, something was written that Eric said no to. He was because he was hired. He was being paid for it. He was hired for this story, and then it was rejected. He got money for it.
I think obviously, I was never fond of Vivoroids. I mean, I think we knew each other when Vivoroids came out, and Vervoids, and I think I just remembered. Oh my God! I mean, it's just. The thing is, it was a very badly executed mystery, and I just don't. I think in one of the I think it might be the Trial of Time Lord, he felt that, and I'm not clear that he felt that Bidmead scripts were a little bit too idiosyncratic for him, and that's what. But I think he would have been better off using that, because supposedly he had Robert Holmes doing the beginning and the end of Trial. Philip Martin was going to do the middle story. Mm-hmm. For some reason, he could not nail down that third story, and I think that was one of the issues that I think one of the issues which forced him off the show, or no, he decided to leave the show.
I actually think the story would have worked better because he was investigating the planet Pinnacotheca, and there was this museum that showed places and times in the universe. What a better place for the Time Lords to to change history, what they're seeing on the screens, by having them in a museum that does that. I think the story would have been really cool. And I don't know if there would have been genocide. That may not have been on the plate, but did that actually work? Did you guys, speaking of Trial of the Time, he's there for interference, and then no, genocide instead. and then he gets off the hook for both of them.
Jared, you want to open up? I've got an opinion on this, but
they needed a reason to have the threat be escalated. That's why that is. If you make, I don't understand how the punishment would have been any different for genocide for interference as far as what the trial was going to do. And this third episode, and call it third episode of the trial, third episode of the Doctor Who historically has a hard time with third acts of anything.
Oh, actually, that's a brilliant thought, because there were 4 stories, and
Yeah.
technically that was the third. That was
Yeah.
the running up and down corridor episode.
Yeah.
Wow. Never thought of that.
So yeah, it's problematic, I think, no matter what you put there. So, and it is very interesting, because I wish we could see more. I wish someone in the Whoniverse, and I'm just going to put that out there, would get a data collection of every story that we know was rejected and why.
Well, Big Finish has kind of done that, at least with the 80s, because they've
Well,
done a lot of shows that they produced a lot of shows that were rejected and didn't get produced.
Right. They've done a lot of them, but not all of them, because
Not all of them.
to Mark's point, there are some that aren't far enough along, either treatment wise, that there's not enough there. They've not gotten the rights to do a production of it, etc. I'm just really interesting to see what the reasonings were that things were passed on. And then compare it to what we got instead.
Yeah. All right. Christopher H. Bidmead, after not being on television, not doing the television show anymore, did not leave Doctor Who forever. For the main range of Big Finish audios, he wrote a story called Renaissance of the Daleks, which in a way was a sequel to Dalek Invasion of Earth in a way. Who wants to cover Renaissance?
I just listened to it this week. I really liked it. I mean, it was set with Peter and Nyssa, in that time between Arc of Infinity and Time Flight. It was a good story. I mean, the thing is, it says the final product, Bidmead was not comfortable with his name on it, so it's a story by, or like inspired
based
by,
on a story by
based on
Christopher H. Bidmead,
so
was what it said.
I don't know if the concept of the big concept is the Doctor's pulled in by somebody in the mid 22nd century, and the Dalek invasion hasn't happened yet, but they can feel echo. They have technology to feel the echoes of it. So I don't know if that
should have happened. It's not that it didn't happen yet. It didn't happen. It was they were living life on Earth at a time where they should have been on an occupation, and they weren't.
But they were hearing echoes of it. So I don't know if
Yes.
that was the scientific concept that he was pushing at it, because I can't. And again, it's kind of I don't know. They didn't do Dalek. John didn't want to do a Dalek story just right after they did Destiny of the Daleks. So that was one reason why I kind of find it surprising that he would do a Dalek story. But then again, they might have transferred, because I think it was a very good Dalek story.
I enjoyed it, and I thought that the 3 visitors on the TARDIS, the knight, the woman who was a fighter jet, was in Vietnam, was flying jets to bomb places, helicopters, and the newly released slave. I thought that was a great TARDIS team. There were 3 of them. Why couldn't he write like that? Why couldn't they have made Adric, Nyssa, and Tegan work together like that? I thought that was his way of saying it does work.
Well, I think he might have. I mean, the thing is, I don't know. I mean, I know he had about the same amount of time to do it, but I did like. I mean, yes, he did balance it out. He did round out. He was able to round that out. With all these characters.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to. I wish they would have been more. I don't think in the extra features, which I listened to, kind of explain how much they didn't talk to Bidmead, and they didn't explain how much of the story was his, how much of the story was it. You get a little bit more in the Hollows of Time with that. So, but I think it's a great story.
Hollows of Time. He also wrote for the Lost Stories. That was the story one of the stories that he put out for the TV show that didn't go through. It was a sequel of sorts to his own Frontiers. Jarrod, why don't you talk about The Hollows of Time?
The Hollows of Time is great. Of course, it has to take advantage of the Sixth Doctor and Perry, and they've got a little bit of a memory. We've had this adventure, and we don't really kind of, remember what happened. We remember flashes, so it's got that trope going on for it. One thing I want to point out that Juan just spoke up about was extra features on Renaissance of the Daleks.
Okay.
Hollows of Time came out in 2010.
Yes, June of 2010.
Which was kind of after Big Finish discovered value for bonus features, because a lot of like the first 50 of the main range, there's nothing there in terms of bonus or whatever. And then they discovered a podcast that they could podcast, and then it wasn't really until the big boom of the Tenet era, which is where, we need to put out more stuff. There's more audios, more commentaries, etc. But yeah, for me, for the Hollows of Time, it was okay. It was good. There was a lot visual to it that didn't translate to audio quite well for me, but it was a good story for me.
What did you think? And I know you listened to it before, so but wait, Juan, you've never listened to The Hollows of Time before this time, right?
Yes, this is the first time I listened to it. I listened to it last week.
Did you figure out who possibly Professor Stream was?
Well, they mentioned that in the bonus features.
Let's say you didn't hear the extras. When you were hearing the story, did you put that together?
I suspected it was the Master. It would have made sense if it was the Master. I like it that they kept it ambiguous. What I thought was surprising was that I don't know if they couldn't get Anthony Ainley, but I don't understand why they need the rights to the Master, because the Master was created by Terrence Dix and Barry Letts. They were the ones who wrote him up. Robert Holmes did not create the Master. I mean, the Master was a conception by the production team at that time. So
yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know why they needed permission to get to use the Master.
Yeah. I just like the fact that the Stream anagrams the Master. That was one of my hints. I mean, I knew it sounded like it was the Master, but then I thought when I heard it originally, and I was like, oh, but that's like Neil Toynay or something.
Well, it was also a very Bidmead story, because I think the Master and Streams and Streams as henchmen were kind of in the forefront. I mean, the Tractators are there, but they're more like a prop for the story. They weren't directly affecting the story. I mean, the Master was using them as a tool or Streams was using them as a tool to achieve his aim. And
if you look at the calendar, I mean, Ainley would have been dead for 6 years at the time that this came out. So that's why they couldn't get Anthony Ainley. But is it better creatively to just not recast? I mean, at that point, they didn't have Coleshaw doing the Ainley Master because they were still in the middle of that. We don't recast for anyone. So is it best to just leave it, as it is?
Well, I thought they kind of mentioned some type of rights issue in the thing, as I mentioned before. So that's what threw me off. I mean, I didn't know how long Anthony Ainley was dead at that point, or when the story came out, I should say. So I think they did the best thing, or they could have come up with. It's hard to think of anybody who could pull off the caper as the Master.
And another thing, Juan, just to wrap things up, because I know we got to go. This was 2010. It could have been that the BBC said we have the Master currently on the show in the main show. You can't
okay.
That makes more sense. Okay, guys. Before we go, I just want to let you know he also did one last thing. Before he died, he wrote The Doctor on Mars with Audrey and Anne for Doctor Who Magazine Special Edition 66, 50 Years of the Fourth Doctor. That came out last April in 2024, where he talks about Audrey Hepburn and Anne Rand, who I know there were some fans who were like, they should have been in it, and they weren't. But anyway, we got to go. Thank you for listening. I hate to rush like this. Oh, man, this time constraint here on Subspace Radio, I love it. My name's Mark Baumgarten. We have Juan Sanmiguel and Jarrod Cooper. And we're going to leave you with this word from myself. Bye.
Bye.
That's 2 words. You've been listening to Marku 42. Your hosts, Mark Baumgarten, Vicky Jakubowski, Juan Sanmiguel, and Zion Quiros. Marku 42's Universe is produced and directed by Mark Baumgarten. Copyright 2025.